today with us there is Gerald, co-founder and CEO of Urban Future. And first of all, can you please tell us a little bit about you and your history?
Well, I'm 46 years old. I was born in Austria. I'm Austrian citizen, and throughout my career, I grew up in Austria, but throughout my career, I studied in the US, and I lived in the US on several cities. I lived in Asia, in India, in Canada, in China, and I worked a lot across Europe. So basically, from education, I'm a marketing and finance major. So that was initially my background, but I never really worked in the finance field. But marketing was something that kept coming back at to my jobs and to what I've been doing. But it was probably around 10 years that my life changed quite dramatically. That was when I moved to my hometown, where I grew up, to the city of Graz in Austria, because I fell in love. And from that moment on, my life really changed quite dramatically, because I left a well-paid international corporate job, and I started to basically create my own new job here as a contingency plan. But it turned out to be the passion of my life. So I'm very happy, because in that time we started the Urban Future, and it has been the passion of my life ever since.
So a real luck.
Yeah.
And working all over the world, what are some of the things that you found more interesting of other cultures?
Well, I think the most interesting part from working all over the world, or from traveling a lot, was it puts a lot of things into perspective. I live in Austria, which is a very rich country. There are so many things you don't have to worry about. But traveling the world, you get that in perspective, because here in Austria, everybody thinks it's granted, but many of the things are not granted in most places of the world, whether it's clear drinking water, or whether it's free education, or whether it's a healthcare system, or things that I visited many cities where it's really, really dangerous to leave your home after the sun is down. So, there are not many places in Austria where you would have to worry about at night for your own well-being. So putting this into perspective and sharing some of these information back with my peers and friends and family, I think that helps a lot. Also to my kids that grow up here, that are teenagers, do what teenagers do. But, we support an orphanage in Kathmandu, and I took my oldest daughter to Kathmandu, Nepal, which is one of the poorest countries in the world. And that gave her a very different perspective on life. And I think these are the biggest experiences that I took home from working all over the world.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And can you tell us more about Urban Future?
Well, the Urban Future is an accident. Let's put it that way. Because when we started it was not supposed to be a conference, or it was not supposed to be something that it became now. It was actually an idea for a workshop for one of our clients. And out of this developed a conference. And out of this conference developed, within just 3 years, the biggest event on sustainable cities in Europe. And out of this developed now one of the biggest communities of urban change makers that is out there at the moment. So the Urban Future is basically a community and an event right now that's bringing together people who drive sustainable change in cities, wherever they are, whatever capacity they are working in. their passion is to make their city sustainable. So that makes it very different to any other event that's out there, because usually events are either selling you technology, telling you what you should be doing, or it's an event for a particular group of people, like politicians or urban planners or mobility experts or energy experts. But the urban future sees change happening everywhere. And when people talk about their passion of driving change, they don't really care who the other people are that are listening or who could use their knowledge in driving change. So at the urban future, there are just so different conversations in many different ways. So I'm very sorry. Give me a second. My cell phone,
Yes,
I
no
forgot to
problem.
turn off my cell phone. Oops.
No problem.
Sorry. So here I'm back again. Yeah, that's the urban future in a nutshell. So we connect people from all around the world who drive change in their cities. We get them together and help, inspire them, motivate them to act, to share their experience, and how exactly are they driving change? What were the problems along the way? How did they solve the problems, and so on? And in doing this, we're not always politically correct, because we try to have people focus on the things that did not work, so that they share all the hiccups and problems that they had along the way, things that you cannot read in case studies or in project write-ups, because nobody writes about things that do not work.
Okay. So
steep learning curve.
You said that you try to make city more sustainable. And what do you think is the recipe for do it?
I think there is not one single recipe for a city to become sustainable, because first of all, you need to define what you mean with sustainable. It could be, ecological sustainability. It could be social sustainability. There are many aspects to it. But I think what it needs to do that are a couple of ingredients. First, I think to get the thing started, you need a leader who is willing to lead. Then you need people who are willing to change, or to change the way how they do things. And I think we as citizens, we really need to learn how to collaborate in so many different ways. It's not, that can go from finding solutions to critical problems, such as the COVID pandemic right now. You see those cities that have experience in collaboration, of having their citizens collaborate. They were really quick and fast in developing solutions and how to cope with this situation. But this could be, if we learn how to collaborate with cargo bike ownership, for example, just to pick one, then we could maybe help reducing the carbon emission in our city without big burden of every single person. Because if you share the cargo bikes, transporting kids to school and maybe doing some shopping among a group of people, the burden is not big. But right now, I think most of the people are still very much fixed on doing things on their own, or owning things on their own, or having things on their own. And I think that's where we would really need to depart from in the future to make cities truly sustainable.
Thank you. So you said that also a good leader is needed. And what do you think are the characteristics that a leader should have to be a good one?
Well, that's a tricky one. I think good leaders must have fun in what they do. because if they don't have fun and they cannot follow the passion that they have for something, then they will never be a good leader. But I think leaders should absolutely dare to dream where they want to go to, or where they want to be heading to. And if they don't dare, if they start with barriers where they say, okay, well, we can't do this because, or we can't do that because, and they don't see the end where they want to be going, then I think they will never reach their full potential. I think a leader must be a really good storyteller, a person who is able to create images and feelings in people, because if you're not able to help people understand where they should follow you to, or if you're not able to touch their hearts, it's going to be difficult. In particular, if you want to change things, or if you want to transform existing setups. I think you must be really good in connecting the dots and in connecting others. You should be very humble, and you should understand that most of the people are smarter than yourself. So understanding this, your job is most likely making sure that things are aligned and things are moving in the right direction. And for the rest of the time, just get out of the way of the people who do things.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And talking about the major problems concerning the organization of cities, what are they, like throughout Europe and throughout the world?
Well, I think the key problem of cities these days is that for the past probably 80 years, the cities have not been built for people. The cities have been built and developed to move people with cars. That was the main priority of all the development in cities. And if you're from Italy, you see the old cities in Italy look totally different in the city center than they used to, or than they do right now, simply because they used space in a different way. And the goal was not to move people from A to B, but to allow for people to meet, to talk, to interact with each other, and to live. So it was about quality of living in a certain way as well. So if we return to putting people first, what we want to achieve for people, that we want them to be safe, we want them to be healthy, we want them, to be inspired and inspire others, then we would design cities completely different. And that's where we should be heading. And some of the cities are, but it's a very long and cumbersome process to do so.
And how are you contributing in facing this problem?
Well, I think with the Urban Future, what we do is we're bringing these examples of change makers to an international or even global stage. So we show the examples of urban planners, of mobility planners, of thinkers, of leaders who do exactly that, who take people on their journey, who are asking the right questions. Because if you're following conversations about, some of the cities like Paris, there is very heated conversation about the mayor trying, the mayor's fight against the cars. But that's the wrong topic, the wrong question. It's not whether or not there should be cars. It's whether or not we want to put livability or quality of life in the first place. And I think everybody would agree, if you are able to select your home based on quality of living, nobody would ever dare to select a home which is right next to a 4-lane street. So you have to frame the question in the right way. And I think we're helping that conversation a lot by bringing together people who are in a position to actually drive and influence change and frame it in the way that works.
Okay. It's really interesting because I never saw this perspective. So And how did the organization change after the outbreak of COVID-19?
Well, we had been in the business of organizing and running live events for thousands of people. So you can imagine pretty much everything changed for us because there are no live events for thousands of people, period. So we were actually lucky to be still alive from a business perspective. And that wouldn't have been the case if we didn't have that strong of a community around us who helped us, who wanted the urban future to survive and keep going and doing their job. So these partnerships helped us get through the first instance, the first months when basically everything around us broke together. But then, I'm very much convinced that everything has a good, even if you think it's like really bad at the moment and you can't possibly see how this can be positive. But after a while, we saw the positive side, and we saw opportunities out there that the situation might bring us. And having been a team that's organizing a live event once a year, we have shifted to being a way bigger team, now organizing live events once a year, but on top of that, running running the biggest virtual event for sustainable cities, and at the same time running a platform for the community of city changers from around the world, where thousands of people can connect and exchange know-how on how to drive change in cities. So we thought about those things in the past, but we never really found the time to do so, or the urgent need to do so. Now, with COVID in place and basically our entire business models left in pieces, we thought very much about what we do and how we do it. And with rearranging many of the things or rethinking many of the things, we are now actually in a much better position to achieve what we want to do in the long run, and that is make cities more sustainable.
Oh, it is so inspiring how you find the good even if in the worst situation ever.
Well, there's always a good.
Yeah, I agree. I think you too. I always try to find the best in the worst situation, even in this one. And talking about future, what are the main 3 challenges of urban future for the next couple of years?
Well, a challenge that an organization always has is to adapt to the changes around them. So I think that will continue to be a challenge for a small team as ours. Even if it's growing, we need to adapt, see what's happening in the world. We need to constantly rethink what we do and innovate in order to remain relevant to the people that we try to serve. So our key goal is to provide people who are willing to roll up their sleeves in their cities to make them better places, to support them with know-how, with inspiration, with motivation. And the possibilities to do so, they're just growing every day, whether it's digital formats or whether it's live formats or whether it's the way we produce the content or the way we reach people. It's constantly shifting. So I think when I started my business career some 25 years ago, everything was much slower and much more settled. So when you started to develop something, then it just followed a certain track, and you had an understanding on what it would look like in a couple of years. Now we develop a plan B or a plan C for a live event, and 3 weeks later we can throw it to the bin and need to start all over again. And that is something that I think we all need to be accustomed to, because just the world is changing so rapidly.
Okay. And do you think that our current efforts are enough for reaching the Sustainable Development Goals within 2030?
No.
Okay. What
No.
could we do, like, more?
Anything. Pick any of the topics. I think, the SDGs are more of a framework on how to do it, but to achieve something like curbing our carbon emissions in order to limit the effects of climate change, we're so way far off from where we need to go that that you can't say this is where we should be starting. You could start anywhere, whether it's reducing consumption, whether it's reducing the way we eat, live, consume energy, transport. I mean, that's at least the good part of the pandemic, that is that you don't have people from, from Norway or from Germany or from the UK spending 29 euros and flying all across the continent to the beaches for the weekend, which is, totally crazy. Happened all the time. It's not now. So this is, for example, something good out of the pandemic. But change your own behavior, and you will find in pretty much any aspect of your life possibilities to contribute to reducing carbon emissions, and then multiply that by 300 million people in Europe and I don't know, 8 billion around the planet. That's the task.
So you think that we as common citizens can make a change in this world, and we don't necessarily need the help of the governments?
Yes, everybody can be the change. And yes, you can make an impact for your own life, but you never know what small things could actually turn out. Not all the big challenges and changes have been, done on purpose, but one of the big wonderful things that we experience in our work every day is that we hear and find so many inspiring stories where just ordinary people like you or I do things that are absolutely extraordinary. Nobody would have thought it would work. It was against all the odds, but still, it worked. And whether it's it's a surfer from Norway who is just fed up by all the plastic that's being washed up at his beach in Norway, and he started, with some friends to do beach cleanups and taking plastic off the coves from his area. And eventually, 5 years later, down the road, they presented to the Scottish government, which eventually led to the fact that the Scottish government introduced a system to get that plastic bottles are not thrown out, but actually brought back. Everybody gets some money when they bring back empty bottles. And he said within a year, the problem of empty bottles on his beach, which came mostly from Scotland, was solved because people didn't throw them into the water anymore or into the environment. They recycled them. And you never know what your action can actually, what kind of results your actions will have. So you should always think it's you who can make the change, nobody else.
Thank you. And if you could go back in time, what would be 3 tips that you will tell to your young self?
Oh boy, that's a long list. I think one of the biggest advice I would tell my younger self is that I should always follow my heart and my feeling. And when I have a gut feeling of doing or not doing something, then follow that feeling and not let yourself be distracted by what other people tell you, what what money is involved, or what the coolness factor is or might be. Just follow your heart. If you got a feeling this is the right decision, go for it. So that will be my first tip. Another tip will clearly be not making money the number one choice or number one decisive factor when choosing a job. I think I've had some very tough learnings on that. And probably the third one would be to cooperate more with others. But that's a very personal thing for me. Having difficulties to let go of things. But the more people you actually openly collaborate with, the more possibilities you have. And if you do networking, never do that with something in your mind of what you want to get out of it. That's the wrong perspective. Yep.
Thank you. And do you think there are some habits that we as young people should adopt to maximize our personal growth and achieve our goals, or some habits that you follow and that led you to success?
Oh, well, I'm not really the person to tell anybody about their own habits, but observing my teenage daughters, there are clearly some things that I would love to tell them, but unfortunately, as a parent, you're desperately uncool to be listened to. So happy to share that. So I think young people, young leaders should have lots and lots of real conversations with people, face-to-face conversations about anything. Doesn't matter what it is, it could be on any topic, but have conversations. Try to talk to people that might not have the same opinion as you, and talk to them, get their reasoning why, talk to a Trump lover, and find out why the hell people love this person. Very difficult for me to understand, but there are many, and I like those stories, and it's interesting to see that perspective. It's good for your mind and to be able to put yourself into the shoes of other people, and that's something that will help you throughout your entire life. I think you should make it a habit to be yourself and to speak your mind. I think it might hurt you in some instances, but in the long run, you will be happier. And it will make you more successful if you're always true to yourself. If you don't try to play a role, if you don't try to be somebody else, just be yourself. That's the best you have.
Thank you. And please advise a book to our young community that you think may generate productive and important insights.
I have to admit, I'm a really, really lousy reader. I mean, I have tons of books at home, but unfortunately, I'm finding too little time to read most of them. But I picked one book. Unfortunately, it's in German, so I'm not quite sure if it's to the benefit of a lot of people. Let me see if I can get it in focus. So this is a book about 102 maps. It's called Green Maps. That explain how to save the world. And it's not necessarily the content of the book or the particular maps that I think are interesting, but what this book does, it gives you an idea on how to visualize a challenge or a topic. And I think to be able to create images for people or to communicate a topic or provoke with a graph, that will be something that will help you a lot in your job.
Okay, I'm sure that it is really inspiring. And if you would have to give 3 pieces of advice to young people for their future, what will they be?
Well, some of them we already talked about. First, be yourself. I think in the long run, you will never succeed if you're not yourself. If you're fake, if you're trying to build yourself a fake career or try to be the super extrovert person, if you hate parties and mingling, it's just not gonna work. And you have to accept it, that there's just certain things that you will never be, and that you should never be. But at the same time, there are things you do really well. And if you focus on that and you be yourself, you will find your niche, you will find your passion. I think the second one we touched briefly. I deeply believe that whatever happens in life happens for a reason. And even if you are in a really bad situation and something really bad happens to you, there's always a positive aspect that comes out of it. You might not be able to see it in that moment, but you should believe and trust that there is something good in it. And I can recall so many moments in my life where this was true, whether it was my girlfriend leaving me, whether it was a business going bankrupt, whether it's losing a client, whether it was, I don't know, not getting pregnant, whatever it might be. There is always a reason why this is happening, and trust that this is right. That will make your life much easier. And I think the last advice I would give to people who want to be active in the society and want to drive change, just do it. Go out and do it. Don't wait for others to start. Do whatever is close to your heart. Go out and start. And
okay.
End of thing. End of story.
Thank you a lot.